Well, good day to everyone. This is Rich Larson from Watermark Learning. I want to welcome you to this month's edition of our IIBA certification chat. We're going to get started at the top of the hour, and I'll show a screen in just a second, but I want to welcome you first and suggest that to get used to the interface, if you haven't already attended one of these, is to locate the GoToWebinar question panel and send me in your name, your location, and roughly, something going on in your part of the world, like the weather or whatever, just to get used to the interface. And we'll get started shortly. If you have a question already, send it on in. I'll queue it up and I'll answer them in the order that I get them. And so no need to wait on that, but I just want to encourage you to kind of get used to the interface. So I'll be back with you one or more times before the start of the session. Bye. Hey, thanks for sending things in. Those of you that have sent in your name and your location. Hi, Jackie, Manju, and others. This is Rich Larson here. For those of you just joining us, we're going to get started at the top of the hour, and I want to encourage you to send in your questions. So to get used to the interface, I also like to encourage people to send in your name, your uh, location in the world, and anything else happening like the weather, just to get used to the interface. And so again, we'll get started at the top of the hour, about 2 minutes from now. Okay, this is Rich Larson from Watermark Learning. Welcome to this session, September edition of our, IIBA certification chat as I get my headset adjusted. So I have a slide deck here that's available as your handout, and I'm going to get the recording started in just a second. I want to urge you to look for the handout in your GoToWebinar toolbar. Plus, there is a question tool there that we'll use for the chat. I've seen several people have already sent in some questions. That's great. We have a lot of people signed up, so I'm looking forward to a lot of great questions here today. So locate that question panel and send on your questions. And then if you'd like to download the handouts, go on and get it. Actually, the recording has started, I guess, so I am going to just proceed and welcome you to this session. And first of all, in the handouts, one of the questions from one of the chat people are, can you go through some tips, well, yes, for recertification tips. We do have some tips in here about, let's see, where we go. Here's some certificate or some top 10 certification tips. So maybe that's a good place to start. And if I don't catch it, David, please remind me about your recertification. First of all, these tips are based on the CBAP and CCBA. Now, not everybody's interested in that, so I'm going to launch a poll in just a second, but I'd like to go over these simply because they cover the essence of IIBA certifications. So for the core certification, CBAP and CCBA, you have a lot of material to cover in the BA body of knowledge, the BABAC for short. And so our surveys that we've done in the past indicate it takes about 100 hours on average for people to successfully pass. Some study a lot more. A few people can get by with less. And you need to, I think, read the BABAC at least once. And that is a lot of ground to cover, for sure. You might want to supplement it with a study guide like the one we produce at Watermark Learning. I co-wrote that, and there's a lot of information there, and it matches up with the BABAC, and it's pretty lengthy as well. But we like to think it's a more practical, structured way to understand the BABAC. And so we always suggest study a chapter at a time, and then do some drill questions if you have our companion online study exam. And you know, the study guide gives you a free trial subscription to it, but a lot of people subscribe for a longer period than that. And you can do drills as you read each section in the BABAC. And if your scores are less than 80%, step number 4, go back and reread particularly the sections that you're struggling with using feedback from the online exam. Do that for all of the BABAC sections, and after you've gone through all of those, then you're probably at least halfway, if not more, through those 100 hours. So as you're approaching your final study, then start doing simulations. And what those are timed practice tests to simulate the actual exam. And it's great to do speed tests to see how long it takes you to answer questions and whatnot. So we have a little timer on there. And if you are getting scores less than 80%, go back and repeat step 3, going back and reread those sections of the BABAC. Now, before your exam, actually any exam that you might be interested in taking, not just the CBAP or CCBA, make sure you get plenty of rest, because I think it'll do yourself a favor and your body will be more relaxed and your brain will be functioning higher that way. And another one, in step number 9, we always suggest a brain dump. If you go into a Prometric testing center, you can write down on a whiteboard that they provide you some key things that you've committed to memory. And while they may or may not be helpful during the exam, they will help you start overcoming test anxiety. Anxiety is probably the #1 reason people fail their exam the first time. And that brain dump is a way to kind of get off on a positive note. And lastly, maybe my favorite tip of all is number 10. When you in your exam, go through the questions until you get a question that you can answer. In other words, skip over the hard questions, don't get stumped by them, and come back to them later. And it's astonishing how easier they'll seem the second time. And you won't waste time kind of fretting over one. I remember one student of mine who said she spent 20 minutes on the first question of her exam. That's a lot of time. You don't have that much. If you take an average, you only have like a minute or two per question, given the amount of time that you're given for your exam. So 20 minutes is a real killer. So don't let that happen to you. So that's a quick overview. And now let me go back to the polls. I'm curious. I'm going to launch a poll. And which IIBA certification are you interested in? So I'm going to launch that, and you should see it on your screen. Which of the exams, CBAP, CCBA, ECBA, IIBA-AAC, or other? IIBA has launched another one, or maybe you're not sure. So if that's the case, send me in a little chat and let me know if you're interested in the newer one. In the meantime, Herschel arrived and says, will this seminar recording be available for later viewing? Yes, it will be. So if you have to leave early, or if you just want to review, you will have access to this recording, so it's great. But always schedule for half an hour, but with the number of people online today, we may need to go beyond that half hour, in which case then you can check that out. So, all right, the poll is open. Let's see, where is that poll? Where'd you go? How many people? 70% have voted. Most, but 70% are CBAP, 14% CCBA, 10 ECBA, 10 AAC, and 14% other. So if you are interested in something else, let me know. Or if you just don't know yet, and you're here to find out different information, that is very cool. And hopefully we can help with this chat. All right, I'm going to close the poll because we've got about 79%. Closing it and sharing results. As you can see, 70% CBAP, and it's pretty evenly distributed throughout the rest. So I'm going to hide that poll now. Great, gives me a good sense. Again, most of you are CBAP oriented, and I'm really, let's see. Let me see, what's the question view? Questions. All right, I'm trying to get back to the questions, and the interface is giving me some trouble here. So just bear with me 1 second. There we go. All right, much better. Let's go back to the top of the list then. What would be the best course to start with? When you ask a course, do you mean like which certification? I think you sent a follow-up, Manju. If you qualify for CCBA or CBAP, I would start with whichever one you qualify for. I can show you a slide in just a second. If you don't have enough hours to qualify for CCBA, and let me go to that section of the handouts. Let's see here. Minimum 3,750 hours for CCBA and 7,500 hours of BA experience for CBAP. Then ECBA is perfect. Even if you had, a couple years of experience, you can benefit from the ECBA, and it's a great way to get started. And then later on, you can go on into the other certifications once you gain more experience. Okay, next question. David asked for recertification tips, and I launched in my certification tips lecture. So recertification, I would start by keeping track of your PDUs, CDUs. I have a spreadsheet that I use, and our website, I believe in the resources section, has some recertification tips, and there is a spreadsheet there, but I just invented my own, and it was just pretty basic. So keep track of the date, the event, like if it was a chapter meeting of your local chapter, or a conference like BA World or BBC or something, or a training class, reading books, mentoring others counts. So keep track of the events that you're doing it, and I use a separate tab for every year, and then enter them periodically. I just did a whole bunch of entries yesterday. coincidentally. And it takes some time, usually, so you kind of batch it up and enter them periodically into the online system. And so I don't know if that helps or not, but the other thing is the distribution of them. They can't all be in one area, like it can't all be from your experience or for education or chapter meetings. It could be volunteering. So spread them out according to the numbers that IIBA suggests. Hopefully that helps, David. Please send in any follow-up questions as I answer your questions. And again, coincidentally, Jackie Gibbs is asking, can you cover recertification tips? I just did that, creating a template, what to include. So I hope I answered that question about what to include. The other thing I could add to that, now that I think about it, is any contact information you have. It doesn't have to be super detailed, but like if there's a website of the conference you went to, or a certificate of completion, for sure, that's a real valuable thing to have. Let's say you take a training course, and that's really the only time you need that. I don't think you need it for a conference. But for a training course, in case you are audited by IIBA, make sure that you can produce a PDF of the certificate of completion of the course. Hello, Mani from Harrisburg, PA. I'm planning for the CBAC and have the application approved. That's excellent. So you have a year now. I have subscribed for your test. However, going through the test and the tests have not many case studies. Can you elaborate? Okay, one thing about the case studies is that in the drills, we purposely leave them out. We put them in the simulations so that you will then experience them as you would in the real exam. They're kind of spread out, distributed throughout your exam. So make sure you do simulations. That's where you'll find the case studies. Manju is saying from New York, hi. Where do you believe BA should reside? Product management, IT with the business, or a separate group? You know, I'm going to kind of cheat and punt. Actually, that's from Jackie. I'm getting my questions mixed up. I think all over the place. I think there's a lot of similarity in product management, and you're seeing articles and tweets and maybe even presentations about BA as product managers, and we've written about that at Watermark Learning too. And I really think that's important. In fact, I'm doing a session at BBC about product owner, and there's a lot of interest in that, and not to undersell it or oversell it, there's a lot of interesting overlaps and conflicts. I think that's great. IT or the business. The ideal place is between the two. And really, I think either one can work depending on your organization's view, and some organizations go back and forth. So if I was asked to be a consultant, I'd want to start asking questions about, okay, what are some of the problems you're trying to solve? Is it that there's not engagement enough with the business? Well, then maybe that slants towards BA. If you're having, you know, deadlocks in IT and they're sort of ruling the roost, whatever, you might want to place it in IT. So it really depends. I personally like the separate group if it works, but it's really kind of organization specific. Ravathi is asking, should we take the CCBA exam if we have enough experience, or can we go directly to, let's see the rest of the question, go directly to take CBAP? Well, again, to repeat, I think I answered this, that if you already have enough hours to qualify for CBAP, I would go straight there. Adam is saying, I've worked full-time as a technical BA since August of 2013, but I'm having trouble filling out the application. Is there any help you can provide? Yes, we can. For one thing, I'm going to jump over to our website. And if you start with the certification and business analysis here, there's things including which BA certification is right for you. There's a nice little white paper if you're still wondering which is right for you. And then some brief overviews here about the different certifications, including links to go in and get more information. So I'm going to go learn more. And if you scroll down, there are 4 little tabs here inside. So step 1 is learning about and applying for the exam. What I really want to do is urge you to get the CBAP application worksheet that Watermark has produced. And it's a nice little spreadsheet. You have to register as a member of our website, but it's a free registration. And then download the thing, and it gives you a great way to track your project hours. I'm not going to digress into those details right now, but to urge you there, it's a pretty straightforward spreadsheet. And what it will do is help you keep track of the project by project work you've done and let you categorize it by knowledge area, because jumping back to the slide I was just showing you before, you need to have a minimum of 900 hours in, whoops, go back, Rich, in at least 4 knowledge areas. And for CCBA, you still have a knowledge area requirement as well. So the spreadsheet helps you see how many projects you need to go back in your history to list in order to hit those numbers. Does that make sense? The reason I say that is you want to start with the most recent projects and work backwards. In fact, IIBA even suggests that too. So start with the most recent projects and go backwards until you hit those magic numbers of either 3750 or 7500, as well as the knowledge area requirements. Okay, Adam, if you have more questions, please follow up, because I don't want to dwell on it if I've already answered it completely. The eligibility criteria for doing CBAP, I'm pretty done with that. Here it is a good little summary in the handouts for you. Bill is asking, can you get by just by reading the study guide? For the CBAP cert, what does the IIBA interact with you? Well, first, let me answer the first one. Can you buy just by reading the study guide? That's a tricky question. Why? Because some people have done it and they've passed. We never advocate it though. We do want you to look at the BABAC. We wrote the study guide to help you interpret the BABAC, and I think it's a very complete coverage, and yet we really wrote it to be supportive of the BA body of knowledge. Now for the CBAP cert, what does IIBA interact with your 2 professional references? They will send out a survey to the references to ask them to complete it. And basically, once that survey is complete, that's done unless they audit you. If they audit your application, it's a small percentage, I don't know what it is, 10, 20% maybe, something small. That's about the only interaction your references will get. I would brief your references to let them know that they're going to get an email. So for sure they're going to get that email. And what they're going to ask are questions related to your ability, knowledge area by knowledge area, which is kind of interesting because I don't know how a reference is going to know about strategy analysis per se, but they'll ask that and ask for your level of competence, basically. So it's an interesting thing. Now, Trish is asking for the CBAP cert, what does the IIBA, well, no, I think I answered that. Maybe I missed somebody's question. Okay, so I think I answered Trish's question. Okay, Paolo is mentioning CDBA as far as an interest. I'm going to page through. I've just added, well, it wasn't me, but we just added information. There's links here that I added. There's a link here to the data analytics, the CBDA, Certified Business Data Analytics. And then we have a page on that for requirements, the domains and the exam blueprint, and some other exam details. So, okay. Now, Manju's saying, I have no experience as a BA. Can I start with CBAP? The answer is no. I think I answered that, but I'm just getting to the more detailed question. The ECBA is the place to start. Okay, David's asking, is today's question just Q&A about taking these exams? Is there any session available to IIBA members that actually go through test questions and test prep? This one's not about test preparation and test prep. I don't think I know of anything like that. We have a training course that will help you with that. And we have a study guide and an online study exam that helps you with that. But I'm not aware of any session that just focuses in on exam questions. Sorry, David. Hi, Monty from Harrisburg. How many simulations I need to perform to be comfortable? That depends. We suggest that you do at least 2 to 3 of them. minimum. Some people take many more, judging by the statistics I've looked at in the online exam. And we also suggest somewhere in a neighborhood of 3,000 to 4,000 questions. Now, each time that you submit a question, look at the answer, that's going to tally up. So you get to that number much faster than you realize. So, and I think many people go way beyond that too. So I think a couple, 3 simulations minimum, and maybe even up 4 or 5. Mike is saying, I'm in the twilight of my working career, maybe 9 years of work left. I have the experience, but I'm struggling with the value of a certification at this point in my career. Well, my question to you, Mike, is are you interested in learning anything yet still as you go through? I think, to me, more than almost anything, a certification helps us to learn. It also shows a dedication to the profession, which, depending on your career, I mean, with 9 years left, you still may be faced with having to change jobs and looking at a new employer. I mean, the average tenure is less and less than what it used to be. So number one, if you're interested in learning. Number two, showing that dedication so that your current or future employers, I think that the other benefits of certification may not apply as much in the twilight of your career, but I think those are 2 really important benefits. Meyer's saying, how do you prove you've done the hours? That's an interesting one. You don't really prove it. You list it, it's a good faith effort. They ask you to vouch for the fact that this is honest. The only way IIBA has to kind of generally verify anything is by auditing your application. And they're not going to be able to tell exactly the hours you've had, but what they'll do is they'll contact the contacts you provide in your projects as a spot check to make sure that you actually did the work. And that's the only way they know. It's mostly an honor system, but it is also backed up with those audits. Herschel is saying, if I was in an operations role and not project-based, what do I do? Well, what you do if you're in sales operations, as you say, Herschel, is look at the tasks that you performed and match it up with what's in the BA body of knowledge. Also look at the techniques. You know, in sales operations, did you do any interviewing? Did you facilitate anything? Did you map out any business processes or work to improve them? All these things are techniques and tasks that are in the BA body of knowledge, and they would count as hours. It doesn't matter what your role is. It's really all about the work you did and the task that you performed, and that's what you need. So yes, the slide deck is available to view after the webinar. We'll send you a copy, plus it's available to download now. Look for it in the GoToWebinar toolbar. Whoops, so Paulo, yeah, just clarifying a little bit. Yeah, you mean CBDA, Certified Business Data Analytics. Raul is saying, does the CBAP exam have questions that would require me to know UML? No, I think I'd have a slight familiarity with some of the modeling things, such as crow's foot diagramming or some. I would be superficially knowledgeable about UML at least. I would look at some of the examples that are in the BABAC and like our study guide and be aware of them so that you're not totally fooled on the exam. Brooke is saying, would you suggest reading the BABAC first, then going back to reread along with the study guide? Yes, that is perfect, because what you want to do is sort of read it straight from the horse's mouth first and then figure out what it means. I mean, that's our suggestion. You could do the reverse too. And maybe some people have done that, but I think our gentler suggestion is start with the BABAC first. Brooke is also saying, using the study as you read the BABAC the first time. Actually, that is the best way. When I suggested earlier, do a chapter at a time, that's what I meant. Read a chapter out of the BABAC and then read our study guide to really understand what it means. Herschel is saying, can you please help answer my question too? Yeah, could you repeat your question, Herschel? I think I answered it, but clarify if you would. Is AAC certification valuable if I'm already a CBAP? I think the AAC is valuable whether or not you're CBAP certified. I think, again, shows knowledge and dedication to Agile Business Analysis. So I do think it is a value, and some people are getting the AAC without CBAP, but I think it's also valuable with it. Whoops, I think I deleted a question. Okay, let's see. So again, folks, if I'm not getting to your question, I hate to ask you to please send it back in. Himanshu is saying, what are some ways, websites, et cetera, to take the required training before applying to take your exam? Well, since Watermark Learning is in the training field, we certainly have lots of information on our website for general information about certification. We have blog articles about it available, and certainly many training products and training classes to help you do that. So rather than send you to our competition, there are other providers out there, but given this is a Watermark Learning sponsored event, I'm just going to really stand firmly behind the great training that Watermark provides, as well as the products. Not that I'm biased, mind you, but I am. Manju is saying, I would like to know the course details of ECBA. You know what I would suggest, Manju? Our training consultants at Watermark are the best in the industry in terms of being consultants. They're more than just salespeople. They will help you with that. And so I urge you to write to them at info@watermarklearning.com. And this right here, go back, Rich. Let's see, drawing tools right there. This little red dot shows you the email address, info@watermarklearning.com, and ask them that very question. They will be glad to help provide you with that, and then they can help either get you into a class, which Watermark runs monthly CBAP classes, or else the anytime Testing 1, 2, testing 1. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Oh, great, thank you. I'm so sorry. That rarely happens. This tool is very, very, very good at audio typically, so great, thank you. All right, okay. So again, apologies, folks. I'm going to keep going to answer all your questions. If you have to leave because this was scheduled for half an hour, know that the recording will be available. But thank you for letting me know about the audio. Let's see, Fabian is saying, I can attest that I use Watermark Learning for my CBAP certification and found it to be the best preparation training center. Thank you, Jackie. You followed the tips provided and you passed. Yay, good for you. I'm glad to hear that. Thank you for sharing that with everybody. All right, cool. And Jackie and everybody else, I assume that's why you asked me about recertification. It's not too early to start recording your certification hours, recertification that is, once you pass. Because like many people, if you forget about it, you'll procrastinate and then you'll be kind of caught short perhaps. Let's see, audio check. Okay, I've got still no audio. We're back, we can hear. I'm deleting all of the texts. Good, that's why you asked about research. Cool, cool. So Akinalolu, I hope I pronounced it close enough. How close are the Watermark questions to the actual CBAP exam questions? We're very confident that we'll prepare you for the exam because our questions are similar in tone and tenor to the real exam. Excuse me. They're not exact. We don't want to know exactly what the questions are. We have a lot of experience developing questions, and we listen carefully to feedback from students who have taken the test, made slight modifications based on kind of more of a general view of what might help them, as opposed to any exact, what the questions are on it. We don't want to hear that because our code of conduct says we cannot know. And any vendor who tells you otherwise, that they have questions exactly like the real exam, are either lying or they're cheating, because we're not supposed to know. So what we do, just to kind of center in on that, is to really help you become familiar with the BA body of knowledge so that you can then answer questions on your real exam based on your knowledge of the BABAC, because that's really what you're going to be tested on. Everything's based on the BA body of knowledge. There might be one or two questions that are like particularly based on underlying competencies that are outside the thing, but for the most part, you're going to be tested on what's in the BABAC. So our questions are really good at helping you understand the BABAC, especially, and maybe Jackie can attest to this, we give you answers to the correct and incorrect answers you provide. And we give you BABAC reference numbers to let you go read that section to see why your question was correct or incorrect. And I think that's helped a lot of people. We've gotten good feedback over the years on that, where we love to include that. It takes a lot of work to put it in, but we find it to be of a lot of value. So hopefully I answered your question about that, Kanolu. Jackie's then saying, how about components of receiving a master's degree in business intelligence and analytics? Does that count for areas in recertification? Yes. Recertification, if you take business analysis education hours, those will count, but it's got to be close enough. So if it's in business intelligence, that's close. I would ask IIBA for that. And again, just to point you to resources, I'm going to spotlight this. This email of IIBA, certification@iiba.org, is, let me just make sure you're viewing that. Yep, good. Certification@iiba.org should be in your speed dial or in your favorites or whatever, bookmark. Ask them. I would ask them about specific courses to see, does that count? What they're fond of saying at IIBA is that if it's business analysis, it works. But I've known students who've gotten their courses rejected in, say, Six Sigma, which is a very close discipline, and Agile. If you take an Agile, like a Certified Scrum Master course, those have not counted according to anecdotes we've heard. So it's not going to help. Now, Bill is asking, will this count toward professional development hours? No, this session will not. This session would count towards your recertification. So Jackie and anybody else, you can count this as a learning experience for your recertification. But for your initial PD hours, IIBA is very clear on that. It has to be a class moderated by an instructor. Now that would count. I'm moderating this, but there is no homework. You're not doing anything other than asking me questions. You're not proving that you've learned something and doing workshop exercises and the like. That is also very necessary. And it's also got to be about business analysis, which this clearly is. So that middle one about the homework interaction is very important. You can't just look at a video and have that count either. It'll count recertification, interestingly enough, but it doesn't count towards your initial PD certification. Mani is asking, what should be the benchmark of your percent simulation that gives a trigger you're ready for CBAP? I think I answered this question. Maybe I didn't delete it. So, or maybe you're asking it again. It looks like you just sent it in. So 80%, maybe when we lost audio, I gave that answer. So thanks for re-asking that, Mani. 80% threshold is what we recommend, give or take a few degrees. If you're not getting close to 80%, go back and reread the sections of our study guide or the BABAC to help shore up on that. Do drill exercises of our study exam to help you out. That'll help get you ready. Herschel is saying, I wish Watermark had 4 straight days of class for the CBAP CCBA. I'll pass that on. So the other thing too, if you prefer, you could also go through our Anytime Learning in 4 straight days if you want. Herschel says, I could get through the learning in a week. You bought the Watermark AAC certification course for $395, and I was disappointed that it does not include the flashcards. The price would justify a full package with all the study material. Could you transmit the suggestion of Watermark? Yes, I will do that. I will do that, Fabian. So thank you for specifying that. So Mani's saying, many of your drills are great and answers and relates well to BABAC. Thanks. Well, that's what we strive for. I'm glad you're finding that of value. And again, we designed the interface of the study exam to let you drill on 1 or more areas at a time, and then get those BABAC feedback areas and go back and reread sections that you're struggling with. Or if you guessed right and you don't know why you guessed right, it's also helpful for the correct answers. So Damaris, you're back, great. I answered your question earlier and said it would be on the recording, and I'm sorry, I can't remember what it was. I've deleted it by now, but your new question is, what grade is required to approve the CBAP? Now, when you say what grade is required, if you're talking about applying for the CBAP, you need to have those 7,500 hours of experience. You need to have at least 900 hours in 4 out of the 6 core knowledge areas. You have to supply 2 references and have either high school or college education. Is that what you mean, Damaris? As far as required to approve the CBAP, I'm taking that's what you mean by your question. Now, the grade for passing the exam is another question altogether. I am guessing about 70% is the cut score. IIBA does not release that, and I wish they would, but everybody guesses it's around 70% to pass. I think that's true for all of the exams they provide, not just the CBAP, but that's our best guess. Well, let's see, any last questions before we call it a day? This has been great. I love all the questions you provided and hope the answers have been helpful. Again, our education consultants are available if you want information about any of the products or the training classes we provide. You got some great links here to follow up for more training. And again, I want to reinforce the Watermark Learning website here for CBAP or for, again, any of the certifications. Let's see. There we go. And check out all the resources Watermark has. David's asking one last question. Besides Watermark exams, do you have any links to reliable and accurate test sample questions or sample exams? The one I would refer you to is IIBA. I would go to the IIBA website. There are some sample questions they have there. I do know, so again, I'm going to go find that. There we go. If you go here to like the particular exam you're interested in, let's say it's CBAP. So go get that CBAP information from the IIBA website. And they have sample questions that were submitted for the real exam that they chose not to use. So they may not be as rigorous or as accurate as you might expect, but that's what I would urge you to. There might be other things. I can't really attest to them. You could search. There are probably some free exam questions out there. So go check them out. Go do a Google search. I think I've seen some. Any other last questions? Kind of a last call here before we wrap up. Now we do this once a month, so we'll be back. Thank you, Fabian. I appreciate the thanks for the webinar. I'm glad it's useful. And we'll be back in October, the first Friday of every month, generally, unless there's a holiday preventing us. We do these chats, and it's great to have you participate, and would love to hear back from you, especially if you've been online and then you take your exam and you pass like Jackie did. Love to hear back from you. So let us know, and or just send us a note at info@Watermark Learning. Akinolu, from general feedback, are Watermark questions easier or more difficult than the CBAP exam questions? They're both. They're both easier in some cases and harder. One reason they're easier is that we prepare you to understand the BABAC. And so sometimes we'll give you a definitional or a knowledge-based question that's not like anything on the real exam, simply because we want you to understand and learn the BABAC. So some of those questions may seem easier, at least once you understand what's in the BABAC. Some of the other questions, I think our case study questions may be harder than the real thing. I don't know, but just having prepared several of them, they're hard to write. They take a lot of time and thought, and so I think some of those might be harder. But so it's both. I like to say. Well, given it's 1:45, I'm going to put a stop to it and urge you to look for the recording. And thank you again for attending. And as always, best wishes on your certification and getting it. Thank you very much.